I gotta. I've been around long enough to go back in time and kind of recall what it was like on election night with a few elections. And my daughter just pointed out to me about Bush versus Gore 2000, and that was an election in which I wasn't a big fan of Gore, and I also was definitely not a fan of Bush. And mm, I I was I was a supporter of Ralph Nader, but I thought that Gore had enough support that my vote for Ralph Nader really wouldn't matter. And I guess this is where I get the idea. I understand how some people feel that their vote does not matter because a lot of it has to do with where you live. If you're in a state like where I'm in South Carolina, your vote counts, but and this year with Harris and Trump, it's not going to count towards it's not going to have the same weight as like with a local election. But then again, you have to understand still that every vote counts. So this is where what I recall was I was working at the car lot. In the car lot I worked at, I've shared it before that my shift was from noon to midnight. And so, as it got after 9 o'clock, um, there's little to no traffic coming onto the lot. And so I kind of would make passes by the TV set. And I noticed NBC, the late uh, Tim Russert, uh, s- talked about how close to the election was. And it looked like Al Gore was in trouble. And it got to a point now that was like 9, 10 o'clock. I remember I got home is when I got home after midnight. Checked out the TV set and I'm hearing the same thing. It's close in Florida. It's really, 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 really close in Florida. And Tim Russell was saying, hey, it's all come down to Florida. It's all come down to Florida. 25 votes, 25 electoral votes. And whoever wins Florida wins the election. And I went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and oh boy, it's not the news that I wanted to see. Now I go back to now. Then I move forward, move on. I sat out the 2004 election. I wasn't a fan of Bush, and I wasn't a fan of Kerry, and I didn't see any plausible third party candidate. So my daughter, I'm stopping and looking at my daughter's text messages. When it comes to politics, my daughter and the apple didn't fall too far. Um, she will send me things, I'll send her things. And she's telling me right now that Harris needs to win by at least 6/10 of a point in order to avoid the scrutiny or avoid recounts and further scrutiny. And I'm talking about the state of Pennsylvania. But anyway, so 2008 comes around, Barack Obama runs for president. Now I really felt that I had to do my civic duty, and I also kind of had a re, I had a re, I, my thinking had evolved about elections to the point where I could not talk about anyone if I was not an active participant in the process. And the other thing is that I realized that, hey, I'm old enough to say I was born in Jim Crow. I'm old enough to say that Negroes on my birth certificate. It said Negro for me and Negro for my parents. And I'm one generation removed from people having colored on their birth certificates. Not to mention, just the stories that I recall from when I was in elementary school. My fifth grade teacher described us um, what it was like in Alabama, and the people who were the civil rights marchers, how when the police turned the fire hydrants on them, it was like a steady stream of hammers hitting them. And so from since that election, I've not missed an opportunity to vote. And or at least I'll say this: I've not missed an opportunity to vote for the national elections. I did vote for in 2022 when Jamie Harrison went up against Lindsey Graham. Sometimes it's the local elections where I don't get to vote because I think it's where I live that where I don't get to vote. I think that's where it is where I'm not in that voting district for that election. Somehow that I think that's how it works. But all that is to say, if for nothing else, I know I did my civic duty in this election. I know that I've, in my own way, have voiced where I stood in this election, at least for president, with Kamala Harris. And now the hope and concern is that she'll get across the finish line. To me, she gets across the finish line. It's a big fucking. All right, so I decided not to upload what I first had recorded, but I'm gonna tack this on to what I've already recorded, and it's 3 hours later, 11 o'clock, November 5th, 2024. I remember back in 2012, maybe even, yeah, 2012, by about 11 o'clock, we knew that Obama had been reelected and it beat Mitt Romney. 2016, I remember being at the bowling alley practicing that night. Usually don't practice on Tuesday night, but I practiced that night. And I remember glancing up at the TV and I happened to see CNN. And I remember James Carville was making gestures as if like, man, things got to really turn around. It's not looking good for Hillary Clinton. Well, and then 2020 kind of went into that. Well, 2020 election night knew that it was going to be a wait because of mail-in ballots and all. And then a few days later, said Joe Biden won, and it was like the world exhales. I can't say the world exhales if things are going to turn out the way they're trending right now. And this is all real time what I'm saying. I don't think the world exhales tonight. I don't think the world says it's a sigh of relief. I think it's one of those pursing of lips and you're just staring down at the ground wondering where did it go wrong. My daughter hasn't texted back to me in about 30 minutes. And when I told her about an hour ago, about 35, 45 minutes ago, I have this woozy feeling as if I'd gotten knocked upside, gotten ear holed. And she said, well, you might need to go to the emergency room. I'm like, no, no, no. When, when there's bad news that comes, or there's impending bad news, I have a wooziness that occurs. And it's like, I got to go to sleep. And that's definitely what I'm going to do once I get finished editing this, though. But these were my thoughts um, over the last 30 minutes. I'm certain that there are people who are really going to really give me a fucking hard time about my talking about Obama, saying how it's about accountability, about truth and support. I still believe that. I still believe that I voted for the right person, Kamala Harris. I didn't think about third party as I did in 2016 because in 2016 I voted for Jill Stein. I wasn't high on Hillary. Definitely wasn't on Trump. 2020 I voted for Biden because I had been somewhat of a admirer of Biden going all the way back to the 1980s. It just seems that he never could put it together running for president. And then James Clyburn got people to support him in the primaries in 2020, and he became the 46th president of this country. But these are my thoughts. Someone described that it had become glum at Howard. And then I started thinking about what Van Jones had said in 2016, how he said it was a repudiation against Obama. So then I'm asking, well, what is the repudiation? Is it against Biden? Is it against liberalism? Is it against Obama? Is it against black women? Is it all the above? And some of the podcasts that I've been looking at, trying to get a sense of what's going on out there, they're talking as if someone is dying right before their eyes. And and I got to thinking about Stacey Abrams again, because Stacey Abrams ran for governor twice. She just missed the first time, and the second time she got steamrolled. But one of the things that I thought about was white women simply won't support black women when it comes to running for the highest of office, or highest of offices, be it for governor or for president. And then I got to thinking about what someone had already started saying. It's a grim evening, a bad day for democracy. Reporting trend lines are bad. It looks like the Senate is going to be 52-48 Republican, maybe even 53-47, but probably more like 52-48. The House of Representatives may tip Democrat, but it may be by one seat, at best two. But I went back to these thoughts. It's as if everyone had turned their back on Kamala, and that's messed up. I saw where North Carolina looks like it's going to be called for Trump, and then Georgia being called for Trump. I'm not surprised by Georgia. I thought maybe there was a chance in North Carolina, but the bad. Now I gotta qualify myself when I say this. The feeling is almost as bad as when Reagan won in 1980 and then in 1984. In that, while I was not old enough to vote in 1980, I thought Carter had a chance, but there was just too many things that was going against him. In 1984, I was not a fan of Mondale, and I voted for Reagan, but I was like, oh man, Mondale just got steamrolled. I mean, that was the biggest electoral college victory known. Reagan won 49 states except for Minnesota. Well, that may not be the case tonight, but it feels like that. It feels like uh, 49 states to one. And probably when I wake up after posting this, I will have to deal with the shit talking that I'll get. But I will conclude with this. I told my daughter that if this election does not go the right way, I had put back some money for passports for her and I, and it looks like I'll be having to buy passports very shortly, because watch out for Project 2025. If that is implemented like what it can, it like it is likely to be implemented, you'll remember my words. You will remember my words.